The scripture reading this evening comes from Matthew chapter 8, verse 5 through 13. And when Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, imploring him and saying, "Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, fearfully tormented." Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion said, "Lord, I am not worthy for you to come under my roof. But just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to this one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to the other, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and he does it." Now when Jesus heard this, he marveled and said to those who were following, "Truly I say to you, I have not found such great faith with anyone in Israel. I say to you that many will come from east and west and recline at the table with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast out into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And Jesus said to the centurion, "Go, it shall be done for you as you have believed." And the servant was healed that very moment.
Evening. We've talked about on Sunday morning the Sermon on the Mount for some time now, and I want to move forward past that tonight to some events that took place following Jesus preaching that sermon. The sermon was preached on, I believe, a place called Mount Arbel. And from the top of Mount Arbel, you can look out. There's a bluff that overlooks the Sea of Galilee, and you can see Capernaum. You can see Bethsaida. You can see Magdala. And you can see Tiberias, all these towns that we have recorded in Scripture, the places where Jesus spent the vast majority of his ministry. And this particular location sat right on the main road that went to Nazareth, went to Tiberias, and went along these cities such as Capernaum. Jesus preaches that sermon there on that hill, and he then returns back toward Capernaum. And as he travels back, we see two individuals of great faith. The first individual that we see in Matthew chapter 8, verses 2 through 4, is a leper. And I love this man because he just straight up tells Jesus, if you want to heal me, you can do it. I mean, there's no ambiguity to that. There's no doubt in that. If you want to do it, you can do it. And Jesus said, "I want to." And the man was healed of his leprosy. The second man that we see is a man that he comes across as he enters into the city of Capernaum. And we see this recorded both in Matthew chapter 8, which was read just a moment ago, but we're also going to be considering what was said in Luke chapter 7 regarding this same experience. In fact, we're going to be mostly looking at Luke chapter 7. This man is a centurion. Now, what does that mean for us? It means that he is a man that has known war. He is a man that has been in battle. He is an experienced soldier in a time when battle was incredibly brutal. And he has survived that, and he has been through that. And he is now a man who commands 100 men himself. And he says to Jesus, "Lord, my servant is paralyzed at home, fearfully tormented." Now Luke is going to explain something to us in that this man is not personally talking to Jesus. When we see in Luke, we see that this man sent the Jewish leaders to talk to Jesus. And we need to understand that there's no problem with Matthew and the way that he sounds when it sounds like the man is speaking directly to Jesus, and what Luke says, because when you sent a messenger with a message from you, they did not consider that to be any different than talking to you. It is the same thing that we see in the Bible sometimes when an angel comes, and somewhere in the whole conversation it switches, doesn't it? It seems like it's God talking instead of the angel, but that's because the angel is speaking the words of God. And so there is no difference between what is being said, whether it's being said through an angel or whether it's being said directly from God Himself to the person. That distinction is not made in Scriptures. Well, Luke tells us that he asked Jesus to come and to save the life of his slave. Clearly, this is a man that has heard about Jesus, and that makes a lot of sense. He's a centurion in the area of Capernaum. He may be commanding some of the Roman soldiers that are tasked with taking care of that area. And it is important for him, and he would have been, if he was a good commander, he would have been one that was always keeping an eye out for individuals that were drawing large numbers of people together. The Roman army's not there because the Jews asked them to be there. Let's put it like that. The Roman army is a force that the Jews do not want in the area. So the first thing you want to do is keep your eye out for anybody that's gathering groups, large groups of people that might become an armed force. So it behooves him to find out about this Jesus, because Jesus is drawing enormous crowds from everywhere. And so, he probably has come into contact, or at least found out about what is going on with Jesus to some degree because of his job as a Roman centurion. It is also possible that he has seen Jesus. It is possible that he has seen the miracles of Jesus. Clearly, he has faith in what Jesus can do. He is a man that is living in the area of Capernaum, and the vast majority of Jesus' ministry and the vast majority of Jesus' miracles are going to take place in this very small area on the north side of the Sea of Galilee. While the centurion does not personally speak to Jesus, he sends those Jewish elders to speak to him. And I want us to consider some aspects of this man that we can see in this text. First, and I think this is a very powerful one for us to consider, he lived in a way that caused people who naturally hated him to care about him. He's a Gentile. That in and of itself is a strike against him, isn't it? Well, he's not just a Gentile, he's a Roman. And he's not just a Roman, he's a Roman soldier. So he's got all these strikes against him, things that would cause any given Jew on any given day to hate and despise him for who he was. And yet consider the description by the Jewish elders in Luke 7. They cared about this issue, and they cared about this man. It says that they came to Jesus and they earnestly implored with him to do this. It's one thing when you take like Jonah and he's told by God to go and preach to a people that he doesn't really want to go preach to, right? He hates them. He doesn't care about them. He wants God to destroy them. And you think about him and you think about the message that he did. God told him to go and tell them to repent, and he's going to destroy them. That's all he did. Just that message and nothing more. He walked through the city saying it. He gave them the bare minimum. There was no imploring with the people. Why? Because he didn't care. These people, these Jews are imploring with Jesus about this situation because they care about this man. They tell Jesus that he is worthy for Jesus to do this for him. When I see this man, I'm so quick to have a comparison with Cornelius in Acts chapter 10, a God-fearing man, a man who gave alms, a man who was so involved with God already before Peter even came to preach to him. But he says this is a man worthy. For them to even say that about a Gentile is hard to even imagine. They said that he loves our nation. Well, he may be the only Roman in Israel that does. Because history is very clear about the hatred that the Romans had for the Jewish people. It was deep. It was so great that by the time you get to the Jewish wars in the middle of the first century, and the Romans come, and Vespasian comes, and he lays siege to the city of Jerusalem. His plan is to do nothing more than to sit around the city and starve everybody to death. He didn't want to even bother taking the city. He was just going to kill them all by letting them starve. They loathed Jews. And yet here we see that this is a man that they say, he loves our nation. They also say that he built the synagogue. And we have to think about that for a moment. This man had a hand, whether financially or whatever it was, or whether he got the Roman government to help, whatever it was. This man had a major hand, obviously, in building the synagogue that Jesus will spend most of his ministry in. A synagogue whose foundation is still there to this very day. And yet this man had a hand in that. The place where Jesus is going to do so many of his miracles that we have recorded. You know, this man, when we look at him, we see a man who is already living by the teachings that we see in the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus just finished, right? In verse 9 of chapter 5 of Matthew, while he was a soldier, we also see that clearly he was a peacemaker, wasn't he? He's amongst a people that hates him, and yet he has made peace with them by the kind of person that he is. We see in Matthew chapter 5 verse 16 that his good works those works have been a light that has changed natural hatred into an affection for him. See from Matthew chapter 5 verses 43 through 44 that this man does not hate his enemies, but instead he loves them. And he loved their nation. Our world is increasingly hostile. And the way we live, we need to understand, is really the only thing that can change that. We have so much responsibility to live in a way to make an impact in that regard. I mean, we can sit around and talk about it, we can sit around and complain about it, or we can live in a way to help change it. True Christianity is a life that draws people toward those that live it. And that drawing ultimately points those people to Jesus. It points them to Christianity. Christianity in action changes the people that it comes in contact with. It cannot help it. It interacts. It is salt. It is something that changes things. Our greatest impact on our community will not be as a congregation. Our greatest impact on our community will be what each one of us do as we live daily out there and show Jesus Christ. That's the greatest impact we will have on our community and on our world. And what we do here will be an addition to that. But folks, the people that changed the world in the book of Acts, as we're studying on Sunday morning, they changed it because of who they were individually going out and being spread across the countryside due to persecution. And nothing's changed for us today. Second, we see that this centurion had an unwavering faith in Jesus' power. In Luke chapter 7, verses 6 through 7, it says, "Now Jesus started on his way with them, and when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, 'Lord, do not trouble yourself further, for I am not worthy for you to come under my roof. For this reason I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But just say the word, and my servant will be healed.'" You know, there is no doubt in his statement. Just say the word. But very much like the leper, right? If you want to do it, it can do it. He says, you just say the word and it'll happen. He's not saying, I hope that you can just say the word and it'll happen. You just say it. There was a faith in that statement. And you know, Jesus really was not one that took well to doubt. In Mark chapter 9, when we see the father of the young man that has a demon, and he says, "If you can do something," Jesus said, "If?" And he says, what you need to do is believe. My father makes that great statement, "I believe, help my unbelief." There's parts of me that still doubt, but I want you to help me with that. You know, the centurion didn't think that Jesus needed to even see the servant. Just say it. Just say it and it will be done. And that is incredible faith. Because you think about it, everybody else is bringing their sick to Jesus. That's stated over and over in the gospel accounts, right? That they were bringing their sick and those that were demon-possessed to Jesus so that He could heal them personally, make contact with them. And yet this centurion, this Gentile, he doesn't even think that Jesus has to be in sight. All he's got to do is say it. There's an incredible understanding in this man about Jesus Christ and about the power that He has. He has very open eyes to what Jesus has done and can do. In our lives, we need to have that kind of faith, a faith that does not waver in adversity, a faith that does not doubt in what God can and what God will do for us. There is a daily battle against our faith by Satan and by his world against us. And that battle is to make the Bible irrelevant in our daily life and in our thought processes, to make God seem to be harsh, to make God seem to be cruel in some way, to make it seem like we are freaks if we seek to live, dress, talk, and view the world according to what Jesus has said. To make us look ignorant for our faith. To make us look ignorant for the stands that we take against immorality and that we take against sin. To make us actually think that any kind of old religion is fine just as long as we somewhere throw in the name Jesus Christ. To make us believe that truth, well, that just doesn't really matter, does it? Folks, the devil is a busy, busy person. And he's busy in our lives and against our lives every day. Too many Christians are weakening their faith to fit in with the world. They are believing the devil's lies and propaganda over the promises of the Word of God. We need to have unwavering faith that Jesus' power has the only answers regarding how to live, even if the world disagrees. We need to have unwavering faith that Jesus' power will save only those that follow Him in obedience to His words, not what I think or what I want or even what I feel. That Jesus has the power, that Jesus' power can give you all the things that you need to live this life faithful for Him. Jesus is not where we go when we have nowhere else to go. That should never be where He sits. He is where we go at all times and first. Why? Because of our unwavering faith in His power to take care of us in our lives. We need to have that faith. Jesus is not an if. He is a certainty in an uncertain world for those that follow and trust in Him. And the last thing we see about this centurion is that he was a person of incredible humility. In verse 8 there in Luke chapter 7, "For I also am a man placed under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my slave, do this, and he does it." You know what I see when I read this? Here's a man that understands the chain of command, doesn't he? He understands authority. He has a grasp of it. He knew his place. He knew his, I guess in his parlance, he knew his rank in the army and at least in the light of Jesus as well. He understood as a soldier the reality of chain of command. And notice the statement, placed under authority. There were officers over him and there were officers under him. And there were ones that he knew he could say to go and they would go, and come and they would come. The biggest problem with many today is that they do not want to be told what to do. In the past, it was a side effect of the personal freedom that our country has always held dear, that we've kind of rebelled against somebody telling us what we had to do, even if it's God sometimes. I think more recently, it is a result of poor parenting techniques, where children like David's son have never heard the word no. and have never been subjected to a parental authority and therefore have never known authority in their life that they have to submit to. We need to know our place if we are to be God's children. He must be Father. He is the one in the position of authority. Jesus is the head of the church. That's the position of authority in the church. He is Lord, a position of authority. He is King, a position of authority over us. If I will not subjugate myself to that authority, I can never be one of His children. I can never be in His kingdom. And Jesus can never be Lord of my life. The first beatitude in the Sermon on the Mount addressed this need to understand our place and our relationship with God. The centurion, a man who was accustomed to being in command of many men, understood that he was not above Jesus. You know, it's very possible that he is the most powerful man in Capernaum. Now, I'm not talking about Pharisees or those the head of the synagogue. I'm talking about the man with the most power. He's got 100 Roman soldiers, and that could have handled anything Capernaum could throw at it. And he had an army that was spread out all over the land that could converge in a moment's notice. This is a powerful man, and yet he looks to Jesus and he subjugates himself to Him. And that shows great humility on his part. For a man of his authority and power to submit to an uneducated, poor, Jewish teacher says something of his heart. The hardest thing for a person to do is to put self to death and to simply submit to the will of Jesus Christ in all things. The real test of the Christian life is not being a moral person. The real test of the Christian life is not just being at church every Sunday and every Wednesday night. The real test of a Christian life is not just being kind to others. The real test of the Christian life is when what I want comes in conflict with what Jesus Christ wants. And the decision I make in that moment as to whether it's my will be done or His will be done. That is the truest test of my Christian faith. Do you acknowledge Jesus' authority over you by your obedience to those things that are in conflict with what you want? Now, Jesus marveled at this man in verse 9. He looked at this man and what he has said. Well, he didn't look at him because he never got to him. But he considered this man and marveled at him. And, you know, Jesus has not changed. And the question can be asked of us, do you show the kind of faith that this soldier did so that Jesus can marvel at what He sees in you? You know, Jesus wept there in John chapter 11, and He still weeps today for the pain that He sees in our lives. He still cares like that. He hasn't changed just because He ascended to heaven. Jesus still marvels at people's faith as well. Do we live lives that cause Jesus to marvel, or cause Jesus to say, as He said to the disciples from time to time, "O ye of little faith"? It will take, to do that, it will take more than token religion. It will take more than simply saying, "I'm a Christian." It will take total and unwavering faith in the power of Jesus and total submission to His authority in all things. Jesus marveled and then spoke these words. He said, "I say to you, not even in Israel have I found such great faith." An entire nation that is founded around a religion that is awaiting one man, a Messiah for the future. And yet the greatest faith Jesus has seen in His ministry was from a man that was far removed from that religion, far removed from that nation, and that's where He sees this great faith. Isn't that amazing? He didn't grow up hearing about it. He didn't grow up every day being told about the Messiah. He wasn't in the synagogue every Sabbath day being read the Scriptures and the prophecies regarding Jesus. And yet somewhere in seeing Jesus with an honest heart and open eyes and open ears, he found a faith that far exceeded those that were looking but had their eyes closed to the man that truly was what they were looking for. Sometimes, and we have to be careful, sometimes Christians are farther from Christ than those outside of Christ. Because sometimes we can easily, especially those of us that grow up in the church, we can easily come to trust in our own spirituality, in our own wisdom. And what I've always been, I'm one of the good folks. And when we do that, it's at the expense of trusting in Jesus. Jesus would go on to say, "Go. It shall be done as you have believed." And the servant was healed that instant. Our faith can have a great impact on others in our life that can lead to their spiritual healing. I mean, what this Roman soldier did and the faith that he had a great impact on the physical health of his servant. But today, as we exhibit a faith for Jesus Christ, that same faith can have a real impact on the spiritual lives of people all around us. The spiritual lives of people that we care about. The spiritual lives of people that we love. That we work with, that we go to school with. Our faith can make a difference. As long as it is a faith that is given to Christ. As you leave here tonight, change people around you. Change people around you by the kind of person you are in Jesus Christ. Allow your faith to bring healing to them. Trust Jesus to guide your life and never fall for the lies of the world or be deceived by the lies of the devil. Submit to the will of Christ that can save you and allow Him to reign as Lord successfully in your life. If He is not your Lord, then you are not in His kingdom, because that's where He rules. Accept His authority. Accept His power. Accept His life and His healing today. And you know what? Jesus can say the same thing to you. It shall be done as you believe. We'll never rise above our faith. What we believe Jesus can and will do for us will make all the difference in what we're willing to give to Him. Give Him everything. And He will never let you down. If we can assist you in strengthening your relationship with Jesus or beginning your relationship with Jesus, we want to do that this evening. If you have a need that we can help you with, why don't you come as we stand, as we sing.